The Galactic Council's security checkpoint had never been breached. Not in 300 cycles. Not since the VA Thrick incident that had cost 17 lives and restructured an entire wing of the station. When Grace walked through the quantum barriers with two Crothian war cubs flanking her like devoted sentinels. Every alarm in the facility should have screamed. Instead, the systems registered her presence with a soft chime, the kind reserved for high commanders and council elders. Liam watched from the monitoring station, his coffee growing cold in his hand. He'd seen a lot in his 5 years as a human liaison to the council, but this was unprecedented. "Run that again," he muttered to the sixth assistant. The holographic display replayed the footage. Grace, barely 5'4" in her worn boots, striding through security like she owned the place. The cubs, each weighing at least 200 pounds of muscle, claw, and evolutionary apex predation, pressed close to her sides. Their heads swiveled in synchronized arcs, scanning for threats with the intensity of trained bodyguards. "Identification confirmed," the six announced in its pleasant, synthesized voice. "Human female, designation, Grace Chun. Security clearance level, error. Recalibrating. Security clearance level, Omega-7. Liam choked on air. "That's impossible. Omega-7 doesn't exist." Correction. Omega-7 designation predates current Council security protocols by approximately 4,000 standard years. Last recorded use: High Commander Veltherin during the Unification Wars. The Unification Wars. The conflicts that had forged the Galactic Council from dozens of warring species. Liam had studied them in academy. Ancient history, the kind that shaped civilizations. He bolted from his station. By the time Liam reached the main corridor, Grace had attracted an entourage. Not just the cubs, but a Centaurian diplomat who'd fallen into step beside her, an elderly Screvian philosopher who'd abandoned his hoverchair to walk alongside, and 3 council guards who'd somehow transitioned from intercepting her to forming a protective perimeter. "Grace," Liam called out, jogging to catch up. She turned, and he saw it then. The subtle shift in her expression, the weight behind her eyes that hadn't been there last week. Something had changed. "Liam." Her voice was steady, warm even. "I was hoping you'd find me. What's going on? How did you?" He gestured helplessly at the cubs, the guards, the impossible security clearance. "What happened to you?" Grace glanced down at the nearer cub. It gazed up at her with what Liam could only describe as adoration. Its tail, thick and powerful, wagged slightly. "I helped them," she said simply. 3 days ago, I was exploring the lower districts when I heard crying, the kind that transcends species. These 2 were trapped in a collapsed ventilation shaft. Their mother was dead. They were terrified. And you just climbed in after them. The gap was too small for anyone else. The local authorities were discussing whether to tranquilize them or leave them to die. Neither option sat right with me." She reached down, scratching behind the cub's ear. It rumbled, a sound like distant thunder. "So I went in. It took 4 hours to calm them enough to follow me out." Liam shook his head. "Crothians are one of the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Those cubs could have torn you apart. They're children, Liam. Scared children. Species doesn't change that." The Centaurian diplomat cleared his throat, a sound like wind through crystal. "Security chief, if I may. What the human did violates every instinct of self-preservation we know. The Crothian Empire has been searching for these specific cubs. They are the offspring of war matron Krelva, who died defending the trade routes from pirates. These cubs represent a direct bloodline to the Imperial throne. Wait, she rescued royalty," the diplomat confirmed. When news reached the Empire, they dispatched a delegation immediately. But the cubs had already bonded to their rescuer. Crothian bonding at this developmental stage is absolute. In their eyes, Grace is Pack. More than Pack, she is Alpha, protector, mother figure. One of the council guards, a towering Valerian with ceremonial armor, spoke next. His voice rumbled through his translation matrix. The security systems recognized the Imperial bond markers. In Crothian law, anyone protected by Imperial bloodline carries the authority of the throne itself. The Omega-7 clearance is automatic, a diplomatic failsafe coded into council systems during the unification treaties. Liam turned to Grace, who was studiously avoiding eye contact. "Did you know any of this when you went into that shaft?" "I knew there were 2 terrified cubs who needed help. She met his gaze finally. That's all I needed to know. The group had reached the council chambers now. The massive doors, carved from a single piece of quantum-locked crystal, began to open. Inside, Liam could see the assembled representatives of 47 species, all risen to their feet, or equivalent. Between the head of the chamber stood 3 Crothians in ceremonial armor, their manes braided with golden wire. The largest stepped forward, dropping to one knee. "Honored Grace Chun." The Crothian's voice echoed through the chamber. "The Empire owes you a debt that spans generations. You risked your life for our young without hesitation, without expectation of reward. This is the highest form of honor our culture recognizes." Grace shifted uncomfortably. "I just did what anyone would." "No." The Crothian interrupted gently. "You did what humans do. We have studied your species since you joined the council. You rescue those who cannot rescue themselves. You run toward danger when others flee. You see children where others see threats." He rose to his full height, nearly 8 feet of warrior tradition. "The Empire would like to propose a formal alliance with humanity, and we would like to offer you, Grace Chun, a position as Ambassador Guardian. The Cubs have chosen you. We honor that choice." Liam watched Grace's face cycle through shock, confusion, and finally, a tentative acceptance. The Cubs pressed closer to her legs, their rumbling purrs vibrating through the floor. "I'm just a xenobotanist," she said quietly. "I was studying fungal propagation in low-gravity environments." "You are a xenobotanist," the Centaurian diplomat agreed. "You are also the first human to trigger an Imperial bond, the first person in 4 millennia to activate Omega-7 clearance, and apparently, the most unusual bodyguard detail in Council history." Grace looked down at the Cubs, then at Liam. "I'm going to need your help with this." Liam laughed, the tension finally breaking. "You rescue alien royalty, trigger ancient security protocols, and accidentally become an ambassador, and now you need help." "I don't speak Crothian. Also, I have no idea how to be a diplomat." "Just keep being yourself," Liam said. "It seems to be working pretty well so far." As the council session began, with Grace awkwardly taking a seat beside the Crothian delegation, Cubs still faithfully at her sides, Liam couldn't help but think about humanity's place in the galaxy. They weren't the strongest species. They weren't the oldest or the most advanced, but they ran into burning buildings. They climbed into collapsed shafts. They saw children where others saw danger. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything. The Cubs rumbled contentedly as Grace tentatively reached out to scratch their ears during the opening ceremonies. Somewhere in the monitoring station, the 6th assistant logged another anomaly. "Human female continues to display behavior inconsistent with standard risk assessment protocols." Liam smiled. That was humanity in a nutshell. And apparently, the galaxy was starting to notice.